Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 97th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I have with me the New England Hockey Journal's Evan Marinovsky. Evan, thank you very much for joining us.
Of course, 97 episodes, perfect day. Connor McDavid, 97. It's the beginning of the Stanley Cup Final. We're recording Saturday morning, so it'll get started tonight.
Okay. I wrote about this today, Evan. We'll start off with this since it's still a fairly slow time for the Boston Bruins right now. We'll get into the Linus Ullmark, New Jersey Devils stuff a little bit. We'll get into Dave Goucher giving the Heisman to Nesson and basically saying I'm staying in Vegas. But let's start with I wrote this last night, posted it this morning on the Boston Sports Journal. And
You almost said New England Hockey Journal.
I know. Well, I was
Journal.
just thinking as I was saying it. I didn't even introduce myself at the beginning of the show. I am Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Apply for get a premium membership. You get all of my NHL and hockey writing sent straight directly to your inbox. And by the way, I also write for the Boston Sports Journal, where you can find all of my Bruins writing there. And what you will find today on the Boston Sports Journal that I wrote was we hear a lot of, and the Bruins need a center. We hear a lot towards the end of the season, early this spring, continues now, a lot about Trevor Zegras being available and the Anaheim Ducks shopping him. And my take was the Bruins absolutely need to upgrade at center. They absolutely don't need Trevor Zegras for many different reasons, and I outlined them. But before I get into that, I'm just curious your thoughts on Trevor Zegras potentially being one of those candidates that you would throw in there with like Cole Perfetti, Martin Necas, Elias Lindholm, Chandler Stevenson. There's a lot of names we're hearing that are potential candidates. Would you consider Trevor Zegras?
I'd consider him as like a number 2 center. I wouldn't consider, and you have that. I'm with you on this. I'm not rushing out to go get Zegras and make him my franchise center. I think a lot of people see the high skill stuff he does. They think back to, the Michigans and the passes over the net and stuff like that. And that's all fun and good. And it's nice stuff. But I don't feel like he would be the number 1 center you want. I don't think he's the number 1 center you need. Obviously, I think Anaheim, I don't know what they're going to end up doing with him, but they have, the Leo Carlson. They've got, not Sam Steele. What's his name? I'm blanking on his name. Troy Terry. Terry can play the middle.
Great college player.
Yes, great college player. And again, for like Trevor Zegras is a local guy, so that's fun. That'd be cool. BU, Mid Fairfield, Avon. That's awesome. It'd be great for me. But for the Bruins, I don't think he's the number 1 center that you need. To me, I think a lot of people, and if you can get a number 1 center who's going to go out and get you a ton of points, 80 points, 90 points, whatever it is, that's great. But what you really need is someone who can have tough matchups, can, potentially shut another line down, responsible defensively, more in line of a Patrice Bergeron-like number 1 center. Again, if you can go out, if Leon Draisaitl falls into your lap and he's putting up 100 points a season, terrific. But I don't think Trevor Zegras is going to be doing that. And I think he's defensively not where you need him to be. Hey, maybe it could work, but I think there are better options out there.
No, Elias Lindholm is much more in line with the kind of center that the Boston Bruins need.
Yes.
Obviously, offensive production wasn't there. I think he had like 15 goals and 40-something points last year with Calgary and Vancouver. It was not a great season for him offensively, but he has had a 40-goal, 80-point season in his past. He's shown that he can do it, and he's capable of big offensive numbers. So that is the kind of center I think if you're going to spend the money, if you're going to carve out, $8 million in your $7-8 million in your salary cap for a frontline center, that's the kind of guy that you want that can do everything, play in all situations. 200-foot center can shut down guys like Barkov potentially, or at least match up with them. Trevor Zegras, I don't think there's a lot of different reasons why you would like him. He's obviously got tons of high-end offensive skill. His hands are great. He's a built-in ticket seller. You know, you and I both know, Evan, when you talk to kids nowadays, younger players, they are infatuated with Trevor Zegras. They think he's one of the best players in the league. You know,
Oh,
they think he's
yes.
amazing. They love his highlights. They're trying to do his moves when they're at practice all the time, like, and when they're fooling around in the driveway. Like,
I'm
he
trying
would
to think
sell
of who
tickets because
he would. I'm trying to think of who that was when I was a kid. Like Datsuk was the big one, but Datsuk was real good. Like Datsuk was
yes,
a cup winner. Like, but
he's a complete
Datsuk
player.
was the guy when I was little. Yes, Datsuk was the kid that everyone in street hockey or regular hockey be trying to do that. Or there was that Oliver Wahlstrom, like, remember that shootout move? And that was the other one. So
Yeah,
those are the two.
but Datsuk is a Selke winner, like a full complete
very
like
different.
player, like you know,
Very
that's
different.
the kind of player the Bruins would love to have is a Datsuk type.
That
Zegras
would
is
be
not
nice.
that. You know, Zegras has the flash and the dazzle. He's going to sell tickets. He would get fans excited, especially young fans. Like, there's a lot of things that I think you would get immediate sizzle for making a deal for a guy like Trevor Zegras. But the problem is there's not a lot of substance to his game. You know, there is definite flash, there is definite highlight reel moves, but I think he like leans too much on that stuff. I think he plays to that too much, and there's not enough other things that he does besides some of the real flashy
Felger would
offensive
hate
stuff.
him.
He's not an upgrade over Charlie Coyle or Pavel Zacha as your top six centers at all. He doesn't produce any more offensively than they do. At the end of the day, he's not as good a well-rounded player as they are. I do not think he would ever be as good a playoff player as either one of those two. He is a very much a finesse, technique, skill player that I think has not figured out any of the other facets of the game to this point in his NHL career. And really, the numbers have not been that great. 20-something, I think he averages like 23 goals and 60 points in his two best seasons when he was healthy. Obviously, he's still young, and there's still a lot of upside, and he can still, you know, get better from where he is. I just think it's a danger sign that he's been like a minus 45 in those two full seasons that he had. And the fact that the Ducks are shopping him tells me I think they feel like he's always going to be a one-trick pony, and he's not going to really get any better, and he's not going to be a franchise center, and he's not going to be the guy that's going to lead them, you know, back into the playoffs. They feel like they've got better alternatives, and they want to kind of ship him out because he's signed to a contract, and he's got a couple years over $5 million left. But I just look at him and I see this kid's already famous. This kid's already a hero to like young hockey players everywhere, and he knows it because
he's already been on the cover of NHL.
Yes,
he was on the cover of NHL. I think it was 2 years ago. So after like one good season,
he's had a ton of success from a couple of flashy plays and a couple of flashy things that he can do. And I feel like he's made it, and he's made his name already based on all of that stuff. And that is going to impede his progress and his development. And he's never going to turn into the player he probably could have, should have been, or could have been, because he's already had success and he's already a household name by just doing what he's done. Like he's the type of player, Evan, that like a coach is going to try to tell him, you should do this, this, and this. And he's going to be like, I was already on the cover of the video game. I've already had national commercials where I'm asking like other players if they're going to chell and, you know, running around doing that stuff. He's like, why do I need to listen to you? Like, I've already got it figured out at 23 or 22. Like, I just feel like he's got a little bit of that air about him where maybe he's never going to live up to the actual potential that he has. And he's going to be one of those players. You're going to look at the skill. You're going to look at the hands. You're going to look at the offensive things he can do. And you're going to be like, why is this player not a better player than he is? Why is he not a winning type hockey player? You know, I feel like he'd make much more sense for a team that wants to put butts in seats and wants to sell tickets and doesn't really care what he does on the ice and knows that if they get him, all of a sudden, you know, people are going to buy tickets and want to go watch him play. But if you're an actual like Boston Bruins team that is probably like an impactful piece or two away from having a Stanley Cup window for the next 5 to 10 years, where you're going to be a contender every year and you're going to be awesome as long as you hit on these next couple of moves this summer and you use your salary cap space wisely, I think Zegras is trouble that you need to avoid.
Zegras is interesting because, like, I think long term he's probably more of like a second line left wing. And then the ironic part, and you mentioned it there at the end, is like Anaheim is the perfect place for him. Yeah. Small market team, sell tickets, get the team attention. Like he would be like, get ready to learn Utah Hockey Club, buddy. And again, that's fine. And you mentioned another interesting point about not changing his game. And the highlight plays he's made have brought him tons of commercial success.
Yes.
If he came to a team like the Bruins, who are not known for that, who are known for more structured defensive, trying to become more hard-nosed hockey, all that stuff, is he going to want to change his game to fit that? Is he going to want to change into a two-way guy? Because the more you become a two-way center, the less that stuff sometimes happens. Obviously it's in him, the Michigan plays, the high skill plays, those are in him, but you'd probably see less of it. You'd see smarter plays because no one talks about it, but those high skill, behind the net plays look really cool when they hit. But when they don't, it's like, what were you doing? What was the point of that if it doesn't hit? So I think,
nobody talks about it, Evan, but usually the Michigan plays, you're ignoring wide open players in front of the net that you could pass to for an easy goal to try to do your Michigan.
Yes, 100%. And that's the other. So, and I don't know if you caught me saying this. If he ever did come here, fans would hate him. Fans would hate it. Felt like Felger and Maz would rile the troops up, and he fits, and they wouldn't be far off. I mean, if he produced great, you hope he works out. But my God, him in the playoffs against the Florida Panthers, just getting knocked around by Sam Bennett, and it's oh God. The other thing with Zegras and Lindholm falls into this too. There's a very high chance the Bruins bring in a high-end player, and it's going to cost them something, whether it's a big contract, whether it's a trade, whatever it is. We always talk about high ceilings. Oh, the ceiling on this guy. Pavel Zacha has a relatively high ceiling when they got him, higher than Eric Holla. But you also have to consider with these guys, you need them to have a high floor. And Zegras' floor is low. It's a low floor of just, you're not going to notice him, doesn't fit. Whereas Elias Lindholm, if he came in next season, right, let's say it's 7x7 or 7x7.5, whatever it is, and he gives you 65 to 70 points, but plays outstanding defense and well-rounded and good on the draws and all that stuff, you take it. Because you need it, and that's worth the money because you're getting all that other stuff too. With Zegras, you would need, and again, it depends what you're giving up for Zegras. If somehow it's not a high price and it's hey, we're going to take a flyer on this guy, then maybe you consider it as a number 2 center or a number 2 left wing. But for a number 1 guy, no, it's not worth giving up futures or young players with control. I'd rather you go in different directions than Trevor Zegras for sure, because the floor is just too low.
Yeah, and to your point, if he came here, I think he would end up on the wing. I just don't think he's a Boston Bruins kind of player. And I just think eventually in the NHL, he's not going to be a center. He's just not good enough defensively.
No, I don't think
not doesn't care enough about playing the full game. He just wants to, score, create, play make, which is great. But I just don't think he has the responsibility and the want to be a responsible player for a team that's actually going to be any good in the NHL. Maybe he's always going to be a player that's puts up numbers on a bad team, ends up on the highlights every once in a while, and that's just what he's going to be for his entire career. But I just think everything I've seen out of him in Anaheim, he looks like a really immature player and somebody that doesn't quite understand what it takes to win and what it takes to be a winning hockey player, and is kind of a product of sort of the new wave of hockey players that are so skilled, so full of technique, so full of dazzling things that they can do, but don't have an effing clue how to actually play the game. Don't actually have the instincts.
He is 23. Yes. So there is time for maturity, of course.
There definitely
I get what you're saying.
But I think he's, you watch him and you think he's one of those kind of players that is frustrating because they have all the tools in the world and they have all the skills in the world and they wow you when, they do a skill session with the stuff that they can do, and they can do all these cool things in warm-ups. But then when the game actually starts, you're where is that? Why is it not coming out more? What's going on here? Where did that player go? And I think there's a lot of players like that now. And there's more that I want to credit on some level USA Hockey and the way that things work now as far as teaching skills and cranking out these skilled offensive hockey players. And, the what USA Hockey's done over the last 10, 15, 20 years, I think has been fantastic. But I think there's far too many players that and it's hard to put a finger on why exactly that is. Maybe it's because they play too many games, not enough practices. Maybe it's coaches don't let them just go play for an hour, and it's all overcoached, over skill based practices, whatever. But they don't know how to play. They don't know how to play with teammates. They don't know what to do, to create a winning play. You'll see them swooping around and circling around, and never actually shooting on the net and looking looking for the perfect shot instead of putting a shot on net, creating a rebound for their teammates, looking for an open teammate instead of trying the Michigan in front of the net, different things like that, where you just say how is there not a voice screaming in their head to make the right play there? And I think it's just based on, sort of upbringing or being so skilled that nobody's ever telling them this at any point until they get to the NHL level.
PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. The way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. Whether it's playoff basketball, whether it's Major League Baseball, soon enough, football will be here in the fall. But you can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're totally locked in. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week. From lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chances of getting a win, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the PrizePicks app today. Super easy to use, easy to download. And use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Zegras is an interesting case because, he did have 2 60-point seasons as a 21 and 2-year-old, I think. And I think he could turn into something really good. I think, I don't think he'd be the guy.
Like I said before, he was a -24 and a -21 in those 2 seasons. And granted, the Ducks aren't a good team, but that tells me that you are very, very tilted to the offensive side.
Oh,
and the production even wasn't that good. You were super tilted to the offensive side of the puck, and the production was good, not great, and you were dreadful defensively. There's a lot of warning signs there.
It's funny. I was saying this to someone recently. You think about that team, the top USA players 15 years ago, right? Let's just say at the 2010 Olympics, Dustin Brown, David Backes, they were such a certain type of player. They were not highly skilled. They weren't, speedsters, but they were gritty and grinder.
They had hard skill.
They
as
did.
They like to call it. Yes,
they had hard skill. And props to USA Hockey with the ADM model in the last 10 years. They've emphasized small area games. They've emphasized skill.
Yep.
And they've produced better players. You've gotten Jack Hughes. You've got, the whole Hughes family.
Jack Eichel.
There's a lot of guys. You got Haggs coming.
Cale Makar. Yep.
Cale was Canada. So.
Yeah, he's Canada. But I consider him kind of both. But go ahead.
He's Amherst. That's what he is. He learned.
Yes.
He showed up at UMass. He didn't know how to skate. And he left there, and he was just 2 years with Carvey. That'll do it. But no, and so I think it's going to be interesting to see when the US plays Canada and stuff like that. They'll have similar. You could argue the US is better than Canada right now in terms of players. But yeah, Zegras is an interesting case just in the sense that, what's he going to end up becoming? As I said, if the Bruins got him at a small price to be a second line left wing, I'd be interested because maybe they could set him straight with a good center. Doing, though. But you cannot be the franchise #1 center. No. And I think the way his game works, it's better as a secondary piece. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's, if he can give you 55, 60 points as a wing, for sure, I'll take it. That price, because what is he what's it, $5 million is he making?
5.25, yeah.
5.25. So trade Linus Ullmark and get Trevor Zegras. Same money. Works perfectly. We did it.
Well, and I mean, that's probably, I don't know that Anaheim would take Ullmark, but like you could probably trade Ullmark, get a first round pick, use the first round pick to get Zegras, that and a prospect or something. Like you might have to do something like that if you
Yeah.
wanted to. But it would definitely, there was one way or another you'd be able to get that done. Of the centers that you've kind of heard, who do you feel like is the best candidate, you think the best fit?
I think Lindholm's the best fit. Like, and Nate just is really, an intriguing guy. I know he plays the wing too.
Yeah, for the most part. Yep.
But and there's a high ceiling there for sure. And if you can find a way to try to make that work, I like the idea of a younger guy coming in. You're getting him. What's he, like, 25?
Yep.
So getting him at my age is good.
And he's Czech. I mean, that's always good too.
Yes.
Like have another one of Pasternak's buddies around, his countrymen. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing. I take that every time. But Lindholm fits what, and I've mentioned this a couple times on Bruins Beat. The Panthers, we don't know what's going to happen in the coming years, but projection-wise, the Panthers look like the best team in the Atlantic for a couple years, just given the high-end players they have in their core. Barkov, Kachuk, Ekblad, if they re-sign Montour, all that stuff. But Barkov's the one I circle in the sense that, like, you need to figure out someone that can match him or have a similar impact to him. You had that for a long time at Patrice Bergeron. Obviously, you don't have that anymore. Lindholm gives you that. Now, you don't want to base your team off of what someone else is doing. Like, I think that's a bad idea. You want to be the best at what you can do. But I think Lindholm plays to your identity more. It's 7x7. Let's just say it's 7x7. He's 30. So if you get 4 really strong years before he, potentially has to become a number 2 center, just based off of historically when, players going from 30 to 34.
Yep.
And then, as the cap goes up, that shouldn't, 7 for a number 2 center isn't a bad thing. So,
no, and you would hope by that point you'd bought yourself enough time to draft and develop a franchise center and find, get somebody that's a younger guy that would be ready to step in and be the number 1 guy if he had to shift to second or third line center down the line.
100%. And so it's that. And then I think it's also in the now. I mean, you can stick him with Pastrnak. Lindholm had a really high-end offensive season 1 year in Calgary with playing with, I think, Kachuk and Gaudreau.
Yep.
And I think if you stuck him between Zacha and Pastrnak or Marchand and Pastrnak, like, I think that gives you an element that you need. And I think it's interesting that Vancouver players are so adamant about him returning. When they don't need a top 6 center. Like, they have Pettersson, they've got JT Miller, but they want to keep Lindholm. JT Miller wants to keep Elias Lindholm.
Yep.
Because I think for them, it frees them up from hard shifts or bad matchups. So I don't think he goes back to Vancouver. I think the Bruins end up getting it done. So he would be mine. What about you?
It's Lindholm because I think the Bruins like him. I think he fits their profile. I think he's a much better player than he was this past year. Maybe the down season will allow you to buy a little lower on him than, you would have if he was, say, coming off the year he'd had in Calgary, a couple of years ago. Maybe there's a reduced rate slightly, even though centers always cost more anyway. And I'm sure he's going to get pretty much top dollar. But, like, the Bruins are going to be able to pay somebody top dollar. And, like, the only other thing, I think, if you think there's any way that Sam Reinhart is doable, is achievable, is attainable, I might be tempted to, like, go the route of just, like, going all in, overpaying for Reinhart, getting another, like, huge scorer in, maybe make do with the centers that you have for another year, bring in a Chandler Stevenson or somebody that's not going to be as expensive, and go in that route. And just trying to accumulate as many, like, top 6 impact players as you can, because I honestly feel like, and somebody had asked this a couple weeks ago, like in a mailbag episode, like it challenged you to, like, how many top line center forwards do the Bruins actually have right now? How many top second line forwards do the Bruins actually have right now? How many third line? And, like, honestly, you're at least, I think, 2 top 6 forward short right now, ideally, of what you would have. And one of them being a primary scorer. And I think Reinhart is that kind of guy. I think you need somebody else like that besides Pastrnak that makes things happen, that really puts the puck in the net. So, like, that's the only sort of caveat to Lindholm. Of the center candidates, I think he's the best one. I think he's the best fit. I think you're absolutely right that you need somebody to check the great centers of the league, to do battle with the Barkovs of the league. I think that was very obvious in that second round series where Barkov dominated, that you needed somebody in there to kind of throw a body on him and slow him down a little bit. But I also think the Bruins just need scoring flat out. Like, I don't think a Lindholm is that guy. They need somebody else that can put the puck in the net after they averaged 2.38 goals in the playoffs, which is not even close to enough. They had the best goalie in the playoffs, and they couldn't win because they couldn't score goals. So, that's my thought on that. I think Nate Chas, if they got him, I don't think he's a center. I think he'd end up being a wing.
He sounds like he wants to be on the wing.
Yeah, he's a wing
right?
in Carolina. I think he would end up being a wing here. So I don't even put him really in the center conversation. So
one thought on Reinhart. One quick thought on Reinhart. Because I people have been messaging me being like, what he's a high end player. You need goal scorers. I agree. The one holdup I have with Reinhart is how much of his production has come from playing with Barkov. You get to play with one of the best centers in the league. You come here, you're not playing with one of the best centers in the league. You're playing with a Coyle or a Zacha or a Stevenson or a Patra or someone else that you go out and get. I mean, you wouldn't get Lindholm if you got Reinhart, most likely. So, how much is the production going to fall not playing with someone like that? Obviously, are you expecting him to put up 57 goals? No, but Reinhart's going to be making about 10. Like, I would assume it's going to be in the $10 million range.
Yep.
For what he would bring, you're going to need at least like 80 points. You're going to need 80 points. So do you have the people around him to help with that?
I mean, he was playing with absolute dreck in Buffalo, and I loved him there too. So, like,
that's true.
That's a player that I've liked for an awful long time. I think he's fully capable of putting up numbers no matter which player is playing next to him. And, like, Barkov is great. There's no doubt about it. But is, like, he one of the great playmakers of our time, like, offensively? No. Like, he's a good offensive player. He's a good two-way player. Like, he's not one of those guys that I feel like it really would pump up his wingers' numbers. Like, obviously I wouldn't expect Reinhart to score 50-something goals if he were coming to the Bruins. I think that number would go down a little bit for sure. But just looking what he does in the power play, looking the way he scores his goals, a lot of them are sort of net front and, the Zach Hyman style goals around the net. He scores a lot of those. Like, he does a lot of different things where I'm not sure it's going to matter who his center is. I still think he's going to be able to put the puck in the net. And not only that, but, like, to your point about Florida, you're also weakening your main adversary severely.
This is true.
You take him away from Florida and you add him to Boston. I think that's part of the calculation too, is not only what you're doing to yourself and adding to your own team and giving yourself another primary scorer where, they talked about needing secondary scoring. No, I think they need some primary scoring. They need more primary scoring.
Quite a bit.
Yes, you're severely weakening Florida at the same time, which I think should be part of the thought process as well.
Maybe they'll get Jake DeBrusk and weaken the Bruins. That'll be
Jake DeBrusk is going home to daddy in Edmonton or something like that. Like, he's going to a Canadian market. I think that is the bit. Like, if you could do PrizePicks, except, like, predict like where players are going, I would make a bundle on him going to, like, Vancouver, Calgary, or Edmonton, because he is absolutely headed to one of those places. Probably Edmonton. Like, I think that makes the most sense. But I think he's going to one of those places. He's going to get a crap ton of money in term, and then he's going to, like, kind of fade off a little bit, and, like, he's not going to play that well. Nobody's ever going to call him out, and it's going to be like, 3 years from now, he'll be like, oh, Jake DeBrusk, like, what a bust. He's paying all this money, and he's not doing enough.
Or they'll put him with McDavid, and he'll put up like 100 points a season.
Maybe.
Zach Hyman. And then that'll be that. But yeah.
Well, yeah.
No, so
it's true.
But the Reinhart thing is interesting. Because I wouldn't be against it. You do worry that it would be an overpay just paying someone that much money in free agency.
Yeah.
But I think Reinhart's kind of I usually say the best players don't hit free agency. Reinhart, I think, is an exception. I think he's been just a breakout player in Florida the last 3 years. And, I also look at a guy like Lindholm. Like, I feel like those guys have not bloomed late, but have hit their stride after 25, after when the big contracts usually get handed out. So
Yeah.
I'd be fine with either. I would just prefer Lindholm, but I get the want for Sam Reinhart. I wouldn't be mad if the Bruins got him. He's a high-end scorer, but you need the high-end scoring. If he's putting up 60 points at $10 million a year, we got a problem. But
yes, totally.
You need the production.
All right, Linus Ullmark, not traded yet, but more suitors coming out of the woodwork. People that need goaltending. New Jersey, Tom Fitzgerald. Doing a press conference last week and basically saying the number 10 overall pick in the first round for this year's draft is available for a goalie. Is that adequate for you if you're doing a deal, getting a first round pick for Linus Ullmark? Do you think that that's realistic? I certainly think it's more realistic than Martin Necas. I think you would have to give up more than just Ullmark if you're going to get Necas. But I think the framework of a first round pick for Linus Ullmark deal for a team like Jersey that's wants to move past the Akira Schmid, Vitek Vanacek era with the New Jersey Devils makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that was a great era in New Jersey. We'll never forget those days. Didn't you tell me in the winter you didn't think Ullmark would go for a first?
I did, because I don't think anybody's going to give up a first-round pick for a goalie. I just don't think goalies are that valued on the market, the trade market. But I thought it was interesting that Don Sweeney made some reference to a first-round pick for a goalie in the trade market during the end-of-season press conference. And then all of a sudden we find out now that New Jersey's willing to give up a first-round pick for a goalie. And the Bruins and Devils have made trades together before, vis-a-vis like Eric Holla and Pavel Zacha, and Tom Fitzgerald and Don Sweeney obviously know each other really well. So the fact that Sweeney sort of made reference to that when he was asked about the goalie trade market, I found that telling. When Fitzgerald came out and said basically we're going to give up a first round pick for a goalie.
Yeah, the cops are coming for you, by the way.
Yes.
I called them. They're on their way. I said, you got to pick this guy up.
Some kind of dignitary is rolling in from Logan Airport. I don't know what's going on here.
That's hilarious. I'll probably hear them soon.
I live on Com Ave in Newton, they have something like this every Saturday during college football season when the team is coming from like Logan Airport or Hanscom to go play at Boston College, whatever team BC is playing. It turns into this like long sort of police escort. Holy crap. It's still going.
Can you see it or are you just hearing it?
Oh yeah, I can see it out my window.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
This is like nope, still going.
I wonder what it is. I'll probably see it on Twitter soon.
All right. But the cops on the motorcycles are going by now. It's finishing up.
Okay, there we go. The Ullmark thing is interesting with the number 10 pick. Because I'm fine with that. A lot of people have mentioned wanting more than a first. You obviously had that Ottawa article where, it was like Chikrin and a first and another high pick for Ullmark, which obviously if you can get a package like that with a high-end player with good term and first-round picks, then you take it. But I think the more realistic bet is the number 10 pick.
Are you excited for the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics? You should be. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all kinds of stars. How cool would it be to actually go to one of the games at TD Garden and watch the Celtics? My friends, we've got an option for you. GameTime will help you get those tickets. GameTime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You pick out any specific games or matchups that you love to attend, and you get good deals for those tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. The all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at the checkout. And don't you hate the surprise fees? Props to GameTime for no surprise fees. All right, so take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So the number 10 pick is interesting. I just, obviously if you can get a draft, or excuse me, a trade package like the Ottawa Sun article mentioned with Jacob Chikrin and a first and another high pick.
Yeah.
Like obviously you would take that and you would take a similar package. I just think the number 10 pick for Ullmark is a more realistic bet. I think it helps both teams. The Devils get a number 1 goalie. They can sign him to an extension. And you look at the Bruins, what do they need? They need an influx. They need a high-end young prospect in their system. They need to go get their number 1 center of the future. And I've said it a bunch. The best way to get your true next franchise centerman is through the draft. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to nail it with this number 10 pick, right? Like, if they do, great. If they nail it with like a Berkeley Caton or a Caden Lindstrom or whatever his name is, like, right. That's great if they hit on it. But at the very least, you're getting a high-end prospect. At the number 10 pick, you're getting a high-end guy, and you're getting cap space because you're freeing up that $5.25 million off the books. So a lot of people, when I say to just do for the number 10 pick, people go, oh, what about the team now? Well, you can use that money on the team now. That's the key. So I like the deal. I like the deal. If you can get more, great. But I like that. You'll go for the number 10 pick, draft Cole Iserman because he's local. No, but draft a center. And go from there. There projects to be a good amount of centers around that number 10 pick because it's Celebrini, a bunch of defensemen, and then you've guys, TJ Gimla is also in that class too. So you should have some options around that number 10 pick if they do it. Bruins don't usually do trades that everybody thinks they're going to do, but I like that one. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense for a lot of different reasons. I think that would be great value for Ullmark if that's what you did. I think they should make that pick. I think it would also give them collateral if they really wanted to go the trade route to bring in some kind of center as well. It just gives you more flexibility in all situations. Certainly, like they need to do something like that to make this draft relevant. Otherwise, they're not picking for a long time, and this draft is basically going to be a washout for them where they've got a couple of like late mid-round picks and, the prospects of you yielding much from this draft class are not great unless you make a move like that. So I think it does make a ton of sense. I just think, like I said before, like the fact that Sweeney referenced the first round pick as kind of the value for a goalie and, it being dependent on how desperate a team is for goaltending and like the, sort of the desperation of those teams sets the market in the value market for goalies. I think all that stuff is interesting. I do think also that Ullmark will end up accepting a trade to a place like New Jersey where he can reestablish his value going into a contract year and, get his next contract, play, not be sitting there in the playoffs watching somebody else play between the pipes. And I think that at the end of the day, like all that chatter he had about I want to stay in Boston at the end of the season is going to go away because he's going to realize for him it makes much more sense for him and his family for him to go somewhere else and play. And
do you think
Jeremy Swayman's going to play the majority of the time next year? I don't care what anybody says.
Do you think that there's a part of him that thinks, and because I know like Sweeney and them have mentioned, oh, we love the goalie rotation, and I know he alluded to it in his post game or his postseason presser about, if we could run it back, great. Like, and I don't want them to run it back. I want Ullmark traded.
I mean, he's going to say that, though, right?
No, I know. But do you think there's a part of Ullmark in his camp that think, hey, if he did come back and play the same amount of games, he would be put in a position where his numbers would be good. And then when he's a free agent next year, he'll just get to have his pick of where to go. Whereas if you do go to a New Jersey or you go to a Colorado or a Carolina, those are really good teams. But it's not guaranteed you have a ton of success, especially as a first-year goalie in a new place. First-year goalies typically have a tough time, or not as good a time adjusting as they would be in the place that they're at. Like, do you think there's a part of him that thinks that? I don't think it's crazy.
No, I don't, because I think the danger is that like they're going to sign Swayman to a big deal, and they're going to want him to play 60 games, and
Yeah.
that's gonna not leave a lot for Ullmark to do, and he's gonna get frustrated. Like, I think it was probably really hard for him to watch Swayman play in the playoffs and for him not to play. Like, he did the right things, he said the right things. I think that was very frustrating for him, and I think he sees the writing on the wall that that's going to happen again next year, and that's he heard the Bruins fans chanting Swayman's name at the end of the playoffs during the handshake line. You know what I mean? Like, I think the writing is on the wall that you're not going to play that much here, and the other guy's becoming a folk hero, and you're really fighting against the wind now. You know, you're
and
fighting against.
It's not his fault either. Like, it's not
his fault at all. No, it's not his fault at all. But I think you've got to sort of read the situation and understand that he can't take the gamble that it could turn into, I play 25 games next year and I don't play at all in the playoffs. And like, now there's a stigma that I'm a backup, and all of a sudden everybody's viewing me as a backup and not a guy that won the Vezina Trophy. Like, I think that's too big of a danger. That's too big of a risk. Instead of going somewhere, betting on yourself, especially if it's a good team like New Jersey that should have a rebound year and has the personnel to be a playoff team if they get good goaltending, that I think he would be okay. And I think that would be the right situation. Do I think he'd go to a terrible team? No. But that's what his no trade is there for. He's going to be able to, engineer a deal to somebody like New Jersey that's probably going to be a good fit and serve his purposes for getting another contract and making sure his value stays where it is. But like, I obviously that whole goaltending thing is going to continue to be really, fascinating to watch, and where he ends up. And, Ullmark's such a sort of unique dude too. He's such an interesting, unique personality, like how he's going to respond to all this and how he's going to handle it. Like, oh, that's going to be funny too. Like I'm looking forward to it, because he's a very unique guy. Like, he's a total goalie. Like, Swayman is fairly normal, a little more of like a regular player. Like, Ullmark's definitely a goalie. Like, there's some things he does, and you're like, that cat is absolutely a goaltender, no question about it. Like, remember the weird speech he had after he won the Vezina, where he was almost like throwing his coaches under the bus a little bit? Like
yes.
he's an odd dude. Like, not odd, but he's just like eccentric, different.
He's built different in a different way. I actually liked his comments. I think it was breakup day. And he said, I knew in the playoffs I wasn't playing because I was bad. I wasn't playing because the other guy was just on a crazy run. And I think he's 100% right. But I do think he has to go. He's got to be traded, and for his own good. Like, I don't want to, like, it sounds like I'm gaslighting him. Like, oh, this is for your own good, but it truly is. Like, the Bruins could not have $5.25 million just sitting on the bench next year. That's
his agent's not going to let him come back.
He can't.
His agent is not going to let him come back. Like, he can say all he wants. He wants to stay with the Bruins. When push comes to shove and the agent gets involved after the at this point, he's going to be like, Linus, you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and it again, like, there are teams in the East who need a goalie who are good.
Yes,
New Jersey, Carolina. I know Ottawa was mentioned. I don't know if that's a fit. They're not. I mean, they do have some current pieces, but that's a young team. But to me, it's New Jersey or Carolina, unless I'm forgetting someone.
I know. Yeah, Ottawa really likes him a lot, and I know when I go on with the radio stations up there, they want to talk Linus a lot. Like, so that's got to be coming from somewhere. They must have some belief that either he wants to go there or they really are high on him. Somebody in that organization really likes him. Like, Chychrun's a really interesting possibility too. As a fit for the Bruins in a trade, in any potential trade like that. So, like, all that stuff is intriguing to me too. But I do think it's going to be somebody in the East. Which is also interesting that the Bruins aren't afraid to trade him somewhere in the East. That tells you that they don't feel like he's going to, throw shutouts against them every time he faces them, moving down the line. They're not.
It's not like a Sagan where it's like, okay, this is a really good young player. We know he's going to probably turn into something. They traded him at like 24 years old or that age. We know he's going to be around for the next 10 years doing well. Would rather have it not be against us. Linus Ullmark's 30. Is he 30 or 32? No, he's 30.
30.
I think he's 30. I get the ages mixed up. But yeah, I mean, I'm with the Bruins on that. And maybe if you trade him in the division, you get a little bit more. You drive up the price. But yeah, the number 10 pick, I'm fine with. I'd love to have the draft mean something this year because you're right. If you're just picking in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds or whatever it is, like everyone knows after the 3rd round, picks are crapshoot. Like that's their projections, their players with holes.
That's when you start drafting your scouts' sons.
Yep.
Opposing GMs' sons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's when that happens. I completely agree. Yes.
We've seen that happen many, many times, but even more so with the Bruins than some of the other teams out there. All right.
I know.
Dave Goucher made a little news this week. He went on Mix 94.1 out in Las Vegas and basically confirmed that he's staying with the Vegas Golden Knights. There was interest from NESN and the Bruins for him to replace Jack Edwards on NESN. No surprise there. Like, he was fantastic as the radio voice, play-by-play voice of the Bruins on 98.5 for a long time. And now he moved to Vegas to move over to television. He's been doing that with Shane Knighty for a while, and they've been fantastic together. And there was some even speculation that Goucher and Knighty were, both negotiating as some kind of package deal to come to Boston, which would have been interesting. But either way, Goucher said he's staying, and I'll read some of his quotes here. I'm staying right here in Vegas. It's very odd for me to be in this circumstance. I think we've all been through this. Things kind of come at you out of the blue, and potential opportunities come at you, and you're humbled by it, and you're flattered. Look, I'm beyond humbled and flattered of what's gone on here recently. I think I have one of the best jobs in the NHL right now. I love what we've built here over the last 7 years. I couldn't really wrap my mind around leaving all this. People had reached out to me back there in Boston. I never even thought that would remotely be an option. They had reached out. Everyone with the Golden Knights has been unbelievable in terms of, we get it, you're from there and you come from there. No disrespect to anybody else. I said, this is not a job in city X, Y, or Z. It's not some random job. When it was all said and done, I felt like we've done so much good over here over the last 7 years. Quality of life is through the roof, and I feel like I'm blessed to be around some fantastic people to work with every day. Translation, NESN wasn't offering enough money. No, I can't.
I was going to say, Vegas gave him a big old raise. That's exactly what happened.
Look, I'm sure Dave Goucher maximized that situation and leveraged it into a good thing.
Art of the deal, baby.
Yes,
art of the deal.
Which he should have. And that's absolutely what you do in those kind of situations, is you leverage it to the hilt to make a better opportunity for yourself. And then you thank the Bruins and NESN afterwards for creating that opportunity in that situation. Obviously, Goucher would have been the perfect guy to replace Jack Edwards. I think he would have been awesome to come back here. But I do think he's really happy in Vegas, having talked to him multiple times when they come through here or when I go to Vegas. He was really happy out there. He's found his sort of niche, and he's found a lifestyle that really fits him. I know he does, he has a band and he goes out and he does club shows where he's singing rock songs.
I heard about that. Yes. Yeah, that's wild.
So he's got all kinds of stuff going on out there, and he's leading a pretty fun life. Where I just don't think it was going to take a lot for him to come back to Boston, and Boston's the only place I think he would leave Vegas for at this point in his career. And he would have been great if he came back here, but it leaves other candidates out there, and it leaves a wide net that NESN's going to have to cast to try to find somebody. I'm sure that guy Alex Faust that stepped in for Jack a little bit is among the candidates that will be considered as well, and there's some other guys too. But whoever it is going to have a big shoes to step in with Jack Edwards.
100%. Goucher would have been the perfect fit. I think he was everyone's kind of number one choice, just given his history here. But good for him. I mean, honestly, making the Vegas thing work, it's worked out great. Obviously, I think Forsland, I haven't heard his name really at all with this. I would assume he's probably staying in Seattle unless I've missed something, but I think that seems like that's the case.
Yep.
Faust is probably the favorite, just given that he was working with them this year. Used to be the Kings guy, and I like Alex Faust. I don't know him personally, but I like his work. One other person I like a lot is Mike Monaco, and he does Red Sox games for NESN. He does hockey, does ESPN or hockey for ESPN. I would wonder if he's someone that they look at. I like him too. Faust and Monaco would be the two I would go after. I heard the other day Zolak and Bertrand were talking about bring Dale Arnold back I don't think Dale's coming out of retirement for this.
No.
So I think we could put that to rest. But to me, like Faust and Monaco would be the two that I would look
The only guy of like the established sort of people that have been around for a while and that are doing hockey that I would like to see, Sean McDonough, I think goes without saying. If there's some way you can get him and have him go to Ness, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, just the way things ended.
He's getting paid. He's getting national guy at ESPN.
Well,
and I agree with you. I agree. He's
because
phenomenal.
of the Red Sox involvement with Nesson and because of his friction with the Red Sox and like stuff that happened, well in the past. Maybe that's just not gonna, that would never be like something that would be possible. But I just think he would be fantastic. Like if instead of him wanting to travel around and go all over the country doing Ness and stuff, if he wanted to just be local in Boston and do something like that. He's been so great at hockey. Selfishly, you would like to see him even more with the Bruins all the time. I think that would be really cool. But I just don't. I think that would probably be more fantasy than reality for Nesson to get a guy like that with the the kind of profile that he has.
Yeah, no, McDonough would be the ideal choice. He was someone I'd mentioned a while ago. But again, national ESPN job. Would he leave that? But again, he lives here. He's from here.
Yes.
So like you would think that would be
a Boston guy
good
through
one.
and through. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and it has a history with Nesson and everything. But I think the realistic bets would be like a Faust or a Monaco. I think those two would be good bets. And keep Brick around forever. Somehow, like I don't know. What do we have to do? Can we clone Brick? Can we? What are we gonna do here? We need to keep Andy Brickley around for the next 150 years. So,
well, I think Brick will stick around for. He's got his bionic hip. He's got his surgically repaired hip, so he's doing good. Better. He's moving around better. So I think he's probably going to have at least a few more years left to keep going. And I think he loves his job and he loves what he's doing. So like, I don't think there's an end in sight for him. But I also think it's important for him to be the guy that's going to kind of help along whoever the new person is that comes in and be sort of the steadying veteran hand with the younger guy that's going to come in and do the play-by-play that, isn't going to know the lay of the land as well as obviously Jack did, having been here for so long. So, I think long live Brick. I hope he keeps going for a long, long time and keeps bringing what he's brought to the table for a long time, because he is just a pleasure to be around at the games. And
oh, yeah.
He understands like what Bruins fans want to hear. He understands how to break down the game. I have Finn listen to the Nesson telecast because you learn things when you're listening to Brick talk about hockey. Like he will explain things and take you through things that really help you understand the game. Beersy's like that on the radio too. They both are very good at that and explaining the game and sort of like teaching you about things. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see who they pick, but Goucher would have been perfect. But
it'll be me. I'm the pick. I'm gonna call Bruins games.
There you go, Evan. Selfishly throw your name in the ring. There you go.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I did play-by-play one time. It was a UMass club hockey game years ago. I was awful, and it just that one time not being good. I was like, I'm never going to do play-by-play ever again, and I haven't. I have not done play-by-play since.
I did a bunch of color analysis with Chris Wojcik when he was doing play-by-play at University of Vermont at Hockey East.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was a while ago. That was interesting. It's hard. It's really hard. Like, it was fun.
It is.
But it was definitely challenging. Woj was really good at the play-by-play, though, I got to say.
I've done color for so My Hockey Live. They do high school games and stuff like that.
I think actually Kevin Miller was playing for UVM at the time when
really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Color's easy. I think color's a little bit easier for people like us.
Easier. There's no doubt
play-by-play. Play-by-play is hard. You got to be on. You got to talking all the time.
Yep.
You and I can both talk. No problem there. But keeping up with everything. It'd be fun if they put like Bruins writers in for a period or so, just to see what they'd be like, just to
color is more just like filling in the blanks,
Yes,
like
and knowing when to talk.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like you're waiting for your like pocket to talk and letting the other guy like do what he needs, get done what he needs to get done. That's and getting a feel for that. That's sort of like the biggest challenge there. But it's you also have to have something to say when they throw it to you, though. When that pocket comes, you better have something like ready to go.
Gotta be ready to talk. Well, remember the Al Michaels miracle call? So Ken Dryden was the color guy, and Ken, you can hear almost say something like that would mess up Al's call, and he didn't. Like there was some moment in there. I have to go back and listen.
That's because
He
Al
almost
punched him in the
talked.
face.
Al was like, "Shut up,
Yeah.
shut up." Like, do not say a word. I think it was when there was celebrations, and sometimes you'll hear a color guy like step all over a play-by-play guy's call, or you'll hear, was it Detroit or Chicago? I think it was the Detroit Tigers. This was years ago. The color guy and the play-by-play guy got in like a fist fight in the press box.
Yes.
And I forget when that was. But you can go look it up.
The play-by-play guy is doing some like Hall of Fame worthy call of something, and then all of a sudden you get a Zolak running around talking about show ponies and unicorns.
Yeah. He's like he's trying to make a real call, like you got Zolak in the background. But with Zolak, it's expected, it's like, all right, well,
totally. Yeah, you know what you're getting there. All right, Evan, thank you very much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for
having me. Everybody else out there, thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.